Hey, so my Pathfinder playtest thoughts became a most popular video in less than a month, and I'm totally going to capitalize on it. In case you didn't know, Paizo, the creators of Pathfinder, which is essentially D&D 3.5.5, they're making a Pathfinder 2.0, which is basically D&D 3.5.5.5. It's a brand spanking new role-playing game. They just closed the playtest the start of this month, and they're working on finalizing the actual rulebook for the official second edition. Initially, my playthrough of it didn't work out very well. I had 8 players, some of them were drunk, some on their phones, and frankly, we're just not the kind of group that's into really detailed combat. I've looked more into Pathfinder 2.0 since then, and I've decided that I really want to help endorse the game. It's actually really well made, and there's a lot to it that's to like. So today I want to describe how the game works, what makes it different from other role-playing games, and my thoughts on it, and I'll try to be slightly entertaining. Ready?
Overview!
Pathfinder 2nd Edition is taking some risks by redoing some of the models we've seen in versions past. You build your character brick by brick with a ton of feats. That's it, that's the game. You get feats almost every level, and there are feats for everything, from races, to classes, to skills, to general. And in general, you get a detailed game with a lot of character customization and many options in combat.
Character creation.
In 2nd Edition, you can roll for your ability scores like most games, or you can do their new point buy system, which lets you build your character's stats as you build on their background and their classes. For example, choosing a dwarf will let you add 2 to your constitution, wisdom, and 1 stat of your choice, and you take a -2 to charisma. Then you get 2 more of those boosts from your background based on what it is, 1 boost from your class, and you get some extra ones just for being a friggin' badass. I really like this method because you can play almost any race and still be able to get an 18 in your class's primary stat. And even if your race does have the flaw and you can only get up to 16, that's still very viable for the non-power gamers. 2nd Edition is all about feats, and the first ones you get are when you choose your race. And this is the real incentive behind choosing your race. Because of the stat boosts are so flexible, you're really choosing what selection of feats you can choose from as you progress through the game. Almost any race can get a bonus in strength through your fighter class, but only gnomes can get the feat Illusion Sense to gain a large advantage against illusion magic spells. Also, 2nd Edition brings goblins into the mix as one of the featured races, and I have to say, they look way cooler than the D&D goblins. Next, you choose a background, and this gives you 2 ability boosts and a bonus feat of some kind usually. So if you're a farmhand, you get a feat that lets you be more reliable in athletics, you get some farm knowledge like integrated into your character, and you also get a bonus in either constitution, wisdom, and you get an extra free ability boost. Your background doesn't impact you at all later in the game on a mandatory level, but of course it's a background so you and your game master can bring it in later on should you choose. I like that they made background matter by adding in the ability scores and feats and making it seriously something you have to actually consider when building your character. So then you choose your important piece, and that's your class. And you essentially have all the original classes from all the games, plus Alchemist is a new one as well. Essentially, all your features are divvied out to you via feats and spell slots. And this is where the game reminds me a little bit of D&D 4th Edition, but in a good way. So when you get to level 6 as a barbarian, you get 6 level 6 barbarian feats to choose from out of that list of 6. These range from classic maneuvers such as cleave, into new abilities such as giant stature and animal skin. Essentially every level you get to choose feats from some list. Sometimes it's a class feat and you get a bunch of abilities to choose from based on that class, but sometimes you get a racial feat or a skill feat, and overall you just keep stacking those bricks and building your character based on just tons of options every time you get to a new level. Your entire character becomes a list of feats, and why I like that is because you could have 4 or 5 barbarians in the party, and they could all be a little bit different from each other with different abilities and different ways of playing. And while this does encourage power playing on a lot of levels, there's so many options that it's going to be hard for people to pick out just one master rogue build. Some powers are going to become known as just better than others, and that might not matter to a lot of people. But for those who really do want their character to be just an ass-kicking machine, you're going to still have options. You're going to still be able to choose from a lot of viable trees that will take you to what you want to get. The proficiencies are a new way of mastering your skills, weapons, and armor. The essential list, instead of just being proficient or not, is now trained, expert, master, and legendary, 4 different levels of proficiency. Each of these grants you different bonuses as you advance and unlocks new feats, which you can access at higher levels. For example, the legendary contortionist feat allows you to move through tight spaces at full speed, but you can only get that if you're a legendary proficiency in acrobatics. Skills also offer a lot of new stuff if you're trained in them or not, outside of just the skill check. For example, anybody can make a climb check whether you're trained or not in athletics, but you can only make a disarm attempt if you're trained in athletics and you have a free hand. You must be trained in arcana to try and identify magic. It makes your choices of skill have a lot of impact, just like everything in this game. Equipment, primarily weapons, have a lot of traits now, which allow the weapons to be different in function. For example, the Great Axe deals 1d12 slashing damage, but it also has the feat Sweeper. And that means that it gets a bonus whenever you make multiple attacks and each one is on a different enemy. Meanwhile, the Greatsword, which is also 1d12, has Versatile P as a quality, and it means it can switch between slashing and piercing damage at will. Or the Maul, which is 1d12 damage as well, has a trait which lets you make shove attempts, which you can normally only do with a free hand, with this weapon. So these things all give you different reasons to pick, instead of just like, the Greatsword has the most damage. You might decide that you want to be able to shove enemies in the middle of combat as a cool thing you also are able to do, so you might pick up the Maul instead. The armor has some traits, but they're not that different. They mostly just impact stealth rolls and your ability to make certain checks. Shields are interesting, and they work very differently now. You don't get the bonuses from them unless you take a specific action to lift up your shield and obtain the bonus from it. The shields can take entire blows for you, but sometimes they can break if hit too hard, so you have to sort of replace them and maintain them. Last thing with equipment is the new bulk system. It's really simple now. Everything is bulk. A paladin might be able to carry 14 bulk, so their full plate might be 4 bulk, 1 for the shield, 1 for each of the 3 weapons they're carrying, and that leaves them a certain amount to carry bags of gold, extra treasure back to the city, and it mostly accounts for the space in their inventory more than it accounts for how much weight they're carrying. The spells are awesome. Essentially, you can make them more or less powerful based on the level of spell slot you're putting into the spell. Also, a lot of times you can impact the spell's power by choosing more or less actions to devote to the spell. For example, the heal spell, if you use 1 action on it, it's just a touch spell. But if you use all 3 of your actions on it, it's a burst spell which can help your entire party heal. Like, these options just allow spellcasters more options than ever.
Combat!
Combat is one of the biggest things overhauled in the Pathfinder playtest, and yet it's really simple. You get 3 actions on your turn, and these actions can be any 3 actions. You can move 3 times, you can attack 3 times, you can move, attack, move. You can pull a sack of orc shit out of your bag, chuck it at a pregnant elf, and then climb a tree. The world's your oyster in 2nd edition. There's a lot of other stuff with combat too, new conditions, new abilities, but essentially, you have all these options now in combat between all the feats, all the spells, all the customization. Even if you're a non-spellcaster, you're going to get like 3 or 4 options at level 1 of what you can do on your turn when you're playing. And it's important to note that when the players get more options, so do the enemies, and they get 3 actions as well. So, if you end your turn adjacent to a dragon, you got to think, instead of it, is it going to attack me? You have to think, is it going to attack me once, twice, or thrice?
Non-combat?
I mean, this is where all role-playing games sort of mesh together, is in the role-playing and the non-combat, but there are some things Pathfinder aids in the skills I noticed. For example, if you're trained in performance, you can go out and you can acquire money, just a dice roll of money, by doing a performance in the street. And I think it's a really cool way to make a little bit of extra money and have a reason to take performance, because otherwise, unless you're a bard, when are you even going to use it? But now this gives other classes a reason to. There's also a lot of non-combat feats inside the different class and racial features.
Game mastering!
Now, I didn't play, I game mastered. The monster blocks are super easy to read. It gives you some really good insight as to what their special abilities are and makes it clear so that you always remember when you're looking at reading multiple monsters at once. It does take 3 turns per monster though, which can add up a bit if you have a bigger encounter, but it makes solo monster encounters a little more fair for the solo monster. That way they're not just getting 1 attack off every turn and then they're done.
How's it compared
I want to express that this is my opinion. It's not law, and it's from my experience playing the game. When I first reviewed this game, I thought it was too complicated. And that's because I took it to a guys' night. We were having fun, we were kicking back, we're a casual group. It wasn't for us. I'll tell you what though, I plan to run a campaign with this system as soon as it comes out, or with the playtest. I'm going to do it with a small group of players, and maybe a little bit more on the rules lawyer side, to where they're going to be invested in combat the whole time and really paying attention to the game. The reason is, the character creation can take you in a ton of directions. It's not just your class and your race. Your race means you might have 1 of 12 different feats, and your class means you have 1 of thousands of combinations of all the different skills you can pick up as you go along the different levels. And I love that when I say I'm a rogue, that doesn't mean you can develop a picture of what my guy looks like immediately. He can have a lot of different outcomes when you say that I'm a rogue. I like that every aspect of the character is useful. The skills, the feats, the race, the background, everything you pick is going to impact you as you play. Whereas I feel as in other games, there's some throwaway skills. Background hardly seems to matter. I like the combat. I do think it goes really in depth, gives you a lot of options, which is more fun for the players. And even though that in general makes the combat take longer because there's more options, the fact that there's more actions happening every round makes combat go quicker because people die quicker. I seriously had a player get caught out, 2 monsters, their level, walked up, each got 2 hits on him, and he went down from full health. So it's a very tactical game, and it's going to require a lot more thinking on the player's part. So in summary, this game is detailed. It's a little bit on the harder side compared to 5th edition D&D. I'd venture it's along the complication lines of D&D 3.5, except maybe a little more modernized, more streamlined. Play this with players who are going to appreciate the complexity of it and who can really pay attention to detail and rules. If you're a game master, especially make sure you're that way because people are going to need to ask you for reminders on the rules as they convert from one system to another, or especially if they're new. Then they'll really need to ask about the rules a lot because there's a lot of them. And it's all designed to make the game more streamlined and work better in the end. And I can respect that, and I really think this game's going to do well when it comes out. I wish Paizo the best of luck with this game, and I plan to play it when it comes out. So let me know your thoughts from your experiences with it in the comments and what you think about it. Thank you so much for watching, thank you for supporting me, and game on.